Welcome to Purposive Communication. This lesson is prepared and created by Ms. Raymond Zaira M. Fernandez, a faculty of the Department of Languages and Literature, College of Arts and Sciences, Central Mindanao University. In this unit, we will talk about communication processes, principles, models, and ethics. Specifically, we will learn about the following concepts: the process and elements of communication. Do you have any idea about the process of communication? How about the elements of the communication process? Well, just sit back and relax as we will all learn about this topic today. Objectives: at the end of the lesson, the learners must have performed the following with 85% accuracy. Discuss the process of communication. Enumerated and differentiated the elements of the communication process. What is the communication process? Communication is a process that involves interchange of verbal and/or non-verbal messages within a continuous and dynamic sequence of events. The goal of communication is to convey information, and the understanding of that information, from one person or group, to another person or group. Can you think of an example? Can you give a scenario wherein communication takes place within a group? This communication process is divided into three basic components. A sender transmits a message through a channel to the receiver. Now, think about a situation wherein you are the sender and you are giving a message through a channel. For example, you are using a cell phone to send a message to your mother. The sender first develops an idea, which is composed into a message and then transmitted to the other party, who interprets the message and receives meaning. Developing a message is known as encoding. Interpreting the message is referred to as decoding. Let us take a look at the diagram. Isn't it familiar? Do you use this cycle to communicate every day? Can you think of some examples? The other important feature is the feedback cycle. When two people interact, communication is rarely one way only. When a person receives a message, she responds to it by giving a reply. How about when you receive no response at all? Feedback is especially significant in management because a supervisor has to know how subordinates respond to directives and plans. The manager also needs to know how work is progressing and how employees feel about the general work situation. The critical factor in measuring the effectiveness of communication is common understanding. Understanding exists when all parties involved have a mutual agreement as to not only the information, but also the meaning of the information. Effective communication, therefore, occurs when the intended message of the sender and the interpreted message of the receiver are one and the same. Although this should be the goal in any communication, it is not always achieved. Can you think about any scenarios or past experiences wherein you misinterpreted what your sender is trying to tell? Or how about when you tried to explain something but the receiver misinterpreted your message? What happened then? Now let us proceed with the elements of the communication process. I know you are all familiar with these. Can you remember your first activity doing a TikTok video? You are actually showing the elements of communication process in your video. Now let's get to know more about this topic. First we have the source, the sender of the message. The process of communication begins with the sender, the person who transmits a message. In the first picture, you will see a girl talking to someone over the phone, and on the second picture, a girl having a serious talk with her friend or colleague. They are actually considered as the source or the sender of the message. Examples are the following: the branch manager explaining new product lines to the sales force, a computer programmer explaining a new program to a coworker, accountant giving financial report to its superior are all senders of communication. Another element is the message. It is simply defined as the information you want to convey. A message is any signal that triggers the response of a receiver. Messages could be verbal, written or spoken, or nonverbal such as appearance, body language, silence, sounds, yawns, sighs, etc. Now, can you think of your last message to someone? Was it good? Or was it bad? Another element is the process of encoding. Basically, it is the process of converting your idea or thoughts of the information into verbal and/or nonverbal symbols that can be understood by the receiver of the message. While encoding a message, one needs to consider what contents to include, how the receiver will interpret it, and how it may affect one's relationship. A simple thankful message will be relatively easy. In contrast, to inform 200 employees of a bad news about salary cut or bid on engineering plans to construct a core industrial building will require much more complicated, carefully planned messages. We also have the channel. It is simply the manner in which your message or information is conveyed. Let's think about on advertisements, for example. Should it be sent via an electronic word processing system to be read on the receiver's screen, or through the printed word, or through graphic symbol on paper, or via the medium of sound? The choice of channel or medium, written or oral, is influenced by the interrelationships between the sender and the receiver. It also depends upon the urgency of the message being sent. Besides, one may consider factors such as importance, number of receivers, costs, and amount of information. For internal communication, written media may be memos, reports, bulletins, job descriptions, posters, employee manuals, or even electronic bulletin boards. Oral communication may be staff meeting reports, face-to-face discussions, speeches, audio tapes, telephone chats, teleconferences, or even videotapes. External written communication media may be letters, reports, proposals, telegrams, faxes, electronic mails, telexes, postcards, contracts, ads, brochures, catalogs, news releases, etc. You may communicate orally face-to-face, by telephone, or by speeches in solo or in panel situations, personally before groups, or via teleconferences, video conferences, or TV. The opposite of encoding is decoding. This time, it is the receiver's part to decode the message received. The receiver's mental processing of your message into the meaning suggested by the verbal and/or nonverbal symbols you use as sender. Even if the message reaches intact to its intended receiver, there is no guarantee that it will be understood as the sender intended it to be. The receiver must still decode it, attaching meaning to the words or symbols. We also have the receiver. They are the person or group of people who will get your message. A receiver is any person who notices and attaches some meaning to a message. In the best circumstances, a message reaches its intended receiver with no problems. In the confusing and imperfect world of business, however, several problems can occur. The message may never get to the receiver. Another one is feedback, the receiver's response to your message. Ultimately, the receiver reacts or responds to the communication sent by the sender. The response could be based on clear interpretation of the symbols sent, or it could be based on misunderstanding or misinterpretation of the symbols sent. Whatever the response of a receiver to a sender is, it is called feedback. Some feedback is nonverbal: smiles, sighs, nods, and so on. Sometimes it is oral, as when you react to a colleague's ideas with questions or comments. Feedback can also be written, as when you respond to a coworker's memo. In many cases, no message can also be a feedback. Failure to answer a letter or to return a phone call can suggest how the non-communicative person feels about the sender. Well, let me ask you personally, have you tried receiving a message but not responded to it? Has someone chatted you in Messenger but you only ignored it? You know, to have an effective communication, we have to remember that feedback is an important component of the communication process. Ultimately, the success or failure of the communication is decided by the feedback we get. You see now, with failing relationships, one of the reasons is lack of communication, or just not bothering to reply or give a feedback. Do you agree? Lastly, we have context. It is the situation in which the communication takes place. It includes the environment, which is the location, time of the day, temperature, the relationship between the communicators, their respective cultural backgrounds and past experiences, and the topic/subject of their communication. There are many things that need to be considered, such as the ones given below. Psychological context, who you are and what you bring to the interaction, let's say for example their needs, desires, values, beliefs, personality, and so on. Relational context, your reactions to the other person based on relationship. With the picture shown to you, what can you conclude about the relationship? What do you think is the status of their relationship based on the person's reaction? Also, we have situational context, deals with the psychosocial where you are communicating. The fourth one is environmental context. Now it deals with the physical where you are communicating. In this lesson, we have discussed about the process of communication and the elements of the communication process. I hope that you were able to internalize all the concepts and the terms enumerated in this video. And this is the end of our lesson 3. Stay tuned for our lesson 4. We will talk about verbal and nonverbal communication. If you got questions, don't hesitate to leave a private comment. Thank you.